As the room grows quiet, let your thoughts sail away. The ocean looks calm because it knows you are watching from very far away. It has learned, over a very long time, that humans relax easily when nothing seems to move. This is one of its oldest tricks. At night especially, the surface of the sea feels almost polite. It reflects moonlight gently, rocks boats, just enough to suggest care, and hides its depth with admirable discipline. From above, the ocean behaves like a promise. From below, it behaves like a record keeper. And records, as history has taught us, are rarely comforting. Tonight is not about storms, or sailors shouting into the wind, or dramatic moments frozen in paintings. This is quieter than that, slower. This is about the part of the ocean that never learned how to perform for humans, the part that exists without urgency, without explanation, and without any need to impress. The deep ocean does not rush. It has nowhere to be. Long before humans drew maps or invented names for directions, the ocean floor was already busy doing what it still does today: settling, shifting, growing, collapsing, and continuing without commentary. Mountains formed there without ever being seen. Valleys deepened with no witnesses. Entire ecosystems rose, adapted, and stabilized in total darkness, unaware that someday a curious species would float above them, sending down machines and asking questions that the deep had no intention of answering. We tend to talk about the ocean as if it were empty. This is mostly because it refuses to look familiar. There are no trees, no horizons, no sense of scale that makes humans feel welcome. Depth replaces distance. Pressure replaces gravity. Time moves differently, not faster or slower, just heavier. Down there, metal rusts quietly. Wood disappears. Bone lingers. And plastic, unfortunately, settles in with confidence, like it plans to stay. The deeper you go, the less the ocean resembles a place. It becomes a condition, a set of rules that no one voted on and no one can appeal. Light fades first, then color, then warmth, and eventually the idea that anything should look the way it does on land. Eyes become optional. Shapes become negotiable. Beauty becomes irrelevant. This is where evolution stops trying to be charming. Creatures of the deep sea are not strange because they are aggressive or monstrous. They are strange because they are honest. Nothing down there wastes energy pretending. Teeth are large because food is rare. Bodies are soft because pressure is constant. Bioluminescence exists not to be beautiful, but because darkness leaves very few options. If you feel unsettled by images of deep-sea life, it's not fear you're experiencing. It's recognition that none of this was made with you in mind. And yet, inevitably, humans arrived. Not physically at first, just mentally. Through curiosity, through instruments, through cables and cameras, lowered carefully into places our bodies could never follow. We didn't descend into the deep ocean so much as we peeked. Quickly, nervously, with a strong preference for being able to pull the equipment back up. What we found was not chaos. That was the surprising part. The ocean floor is not a graveyard, though it does contain many graves. It is not a wasteland, though it feels indifferent. It is organized in its own way, layered with history that doesn't care if anyone reads it. Shipwrecks settle beside coral. War machines become habitats. Lost tools are absorbed without judgment. Nothing down there seems particularly shocked by human failure. There is something quietly ironic about how often we describe the deep sea as hostile. Hostility implies intent. The ocean does not intend. It simply continues. Pressure increases because that is how physics works. Darkness persists because light does not travel forever. Creatures adapt because extinction is inconvenient. From the ocean's perspective, humans are not explorers. We are visitors who cannot stay, guests who keep dropping things, and storytellers who mistake mystery for invitation.
500 meters.
History, when it reaches the deep ocean, slows down. Events do not pile up neatly, they sink, they wait. A ship lost in the 16th century rests not far, in geological terms, from technology abandoned in the 20th. Time compresses vertically. Centuries stack like sediment, and the ocean keeps everything. This is not the kind of history that moves forward. It settles inward, it layers itself patiently, allowing currents to rearrange the surface while preserving what lies beneath. The deep sea does not erase the past. It stores it, quietly, thoroughly, sometimes uncomfortably well, which is perhaps why thinking about the deep ocean late at night feels different than thinking about it during the day. In daylight, curiosity leads. At night, perspective does. The mind becomes softer, more willing to accept that some places are not meant to feel safe, and some histories are not meant to resolve. That's all right. You don't need to understand the deep ocean to listen to it. You only need to slow down enough to notice that it has never been in a hurry, and it is not starting now. This story, then, is not about conquering the ocean floor. That idea quietly failed the moment it was imagined. It is about observing what happens when history and nature share a space that neither fully controls, but both continue to shape. The deep ocean is a timeline without chapters. Prehistoric geology rests beside modern debris. Ancient biological systems coexist with recent human mistakes. Nothing is labeled, nothing is prioritized. Everything is equally subject to pressure, corrosion, and time. When we lower cameras into the deep, we are not discovering a hidden world so much as interrupting one. For a brief moment, artificial light floods a place that evolved without it, and then disappears again, leaving behind no lasting impression. The ocean does not react. It does not change course. It does not become curious in return. This is where the unsettling calm comes from. The deeper we look, the more we realize that the ocean floor does not tell a single story. It holds many layered together. The story of Earth before humans existed, the story of human ambition when it met water, and the story of modern technology pressing gently against its own limits. Shipwrecks are only one chapter. Strange creatures are another. Unidentified sounds, abandoned structures, and unexplored regions fill in the margins. None of these elements compete. They simply coexist like notes held down on a piano for far too long. In the following chapters, we will move slowly through this space, not to solve it, not to dramatize it, but to sit with it, to look at what has been found, what has been left behind, and what remains unseen. We will talk about the deep ocean as a historical archive that never asked to be built, and a natural system that never learned how to explain itself. There will be moments that feel strange, and others that feel oddly peaceful. That contrast is intentional. The deep sea is both. It is unsettling not because it is loud or violent, but because it continues so effectively without us. So take your time. Let the pace remain unhurried. Nothing in the deep ocean expects your attention immediately, and nothing we are about to explore is going anywhere. It has been waiting for a very long time. Chapter 1: What the Deep Ocean Is and Why Humans Were Never Meant to Stay. The deep ocean is not a place in the way we usually understand places. It does not have edges that feel familiar or distances that feel reasonable. It does not invite you to stand, to rest, or to stay for very long. It is instead a collection of conditions, quiet ones, heavy ones, conditions that do not argue, do not warn, and do not adjust themselves for visitors. As you move downward through the water, the changes happen gently at first. Light softens like a dimmer being slowly turned. Colors fade politely one by one, as if excusing themselves from the room. Red disappears first, then orange, then yellow. Blue lingers the longest, stubborn and calm, before finally giving up as well. The temperature follows. It does not drop suddenly. It cools patiently, as though it has all the time in the world, which, of course, it does. And then there is the pressure. Pressure does not announce itself. It simply arrives, quietly, persistently. It presses inward from every direction at once, not aggressively, not angrily, just thoroughly. It is the kind of force that does not need to rush, because resistance eventually becomes tired. At great depths, pressure becomes the dominant rule. It shapes bodies. It flattens expectations. It turns even solid materials into temporary ideas. Steel bends, glass implodes, and human confidence, which tends to be buoyant on land, sinks very quickly. Humans call this a hostile environment. The creatures that live there do not call it anything at all. For them, it is home. This difference in perspective is important. Life in the deep ocean did not adapt to humans. It adapted to pressure, darkness, and scarcity. These are older teachers, less forgiving ones. They do not care about comfort or aesthetics. They reward efficiency. They tolerate patience. And they quietly remove anything that cannot adjust. Down there, nothing is wasted. Movements are slow because energy is valuable. Bodies are soft because rigidity cracks. Eyes grow large or disappear entirely, depending on whether seeing is still useful. Teeth grow oversized, not for drama, but because meals are rare and opportunities must not be missed. From the surface, this life looks unsettling. From below, it looks practical. The deep ocean has been stable for a very long time. Longer than humans have been curious about it. Longer than we have had language to describe it. Entire ecosystems formed, evolved, and balanced themselves without ever needing light from the sun. That alone should have warned us that we were entering a space that did not require our presence. And yet curiosity has a way of floating. Human exploration of the ocean feels ambitious when viewed from history books. In reality, it has been cautious, brief, and mostly indirect. We do not go down so much as we send things down: cameras, sensors, cables, machines designed to endure what our bodies cannot. Whenever humans have tried to stay longer than planned, the ocean has responded consistently, not with drama, not with violence, just with physics. Pressure increases, systems fail, fatigue sets in, and eventually someone decides it is time to go back up. The message is always the same. This is not your environment. What makes the deep ocean unsettling is not that it is chaotic or aggressive. It is that it is calm. Calm in a way that does not acknowledge you. Calm in a way that continues, whether you are there or not. On land, environments change around us. They respond. They offer resistance, but also accommodation. The deep ocean does neither. It maintains its rules with impressive discipline. Nothing personal, nothing emotional, just consistency. And consistency, when it ignores you completely, can feel deeply uncomfortable. This is why the deep ocean feels larger at night. Not physically larger, but mentally heavier. The absence of light mirrors the absence below. The mind slows down. Thoughts stretch out. It becomes easier to imagine pressure, depth, and time stacking endlessly beneath the surface. The deep ocean does not threaten you. It simply does not notice you. And for a species used to being noticed by everything it touches, this can feel strangely personal. The history of deep ocean exploration is surprisingly short and surprisingly repetitive, not because humans lacked imagination, but because imagination rarely survives first contact with reality. Early attempts to reach the deep were optimistic: heavy suits, thick glass, clever engineering, the belief that enough preparation could overcome any environment. It is a very human belief, a comforting one. At shallow depths, it worked. Somewhat. But the deeper humans went, the more the ocean responded by doing absolutely nothing different. Pressure continued to increase. Darkness remained complete. Temperatures stayed low. The ocean did not adapt to the technology. The technology had to beg for permission. And permission was rarely granted for long. Living underwater, even temporarily, proved to be less heroic than expected. The body resists. The mind becomes tired in unfamiliar ways. Sleep feels different. Time stretches. Small discomforts accumulate quietly until they become decisions. Most underwater habitats were abandoned not because of catastrophe, but because of exhaustion. The ocean did not force people out. It simply waited. This is a pattern the deep ocean repeats often. It does not chase. It does not compete. It allows mistakes to settle. That is why so many human artifacts remain below. Ships, equipment, tools, objects dropped, lost, or left behind. The ocean floor has become a quiet archive of human ambition, preserved not by care, but by indifference. A ship sinks, and the ocean accepts it without comment. Coral grows over steel. Fish move in. Rust blooms slowly. Time resumes its patient work. From above, a wreck is a tragedy. From below, it is just a new surface. This difference in interpretation says more about humans than it does about the ocean. We tend to think of exploration as forward motion, as progress, But in the deep ocean, exploration often looks like interruption, a brief visit, a flash of artificial light, and then darkness returns, unchanged. There is something gently ironic about how much effort humans invest in going where they cannot stay. Submersibles built to survive pressure for hours, cameras rated for depths no person will ever reach. All to gather images of a world that will continue exactly as before once the equipment leaves. The deep ocean does not become familiar with exposure. It does not warm to attention. It does not grow curious about us in return. It simply continues. And perhaps that is the most unsettling realization of all. Not that the deep ocean is dangerous, but that it is complete without us. It does not need to be explored to exist. It does not need to be understood to function. We are late arrivals, peering in briefly, taking notes and leaving again. The deep ocean does not record our names. It does not mark our visits. It does not adjust its schedule. This chapter of history is not one of conquest or mastery. It is one of limits, of learning slowly and quietly that some environments are not problems to be solved, but realities to be acknowledged. So when we say the deep ocean is not a place for humans, it is not an insult. It is simply an observation, a calm one, a factual one. The deep ocean is not rejecting us. It never invited us in the first place. And somehow, in the stillness of that realization, there is something oddly peaceful. Over time, something subtle begins to happen when humans study the deep ocean long enough. The questions change. At first, the questions are ambitious. How deep can we go? How long can we stay? What will we find? Later, the questions become quieter. Why is it so stable? Why does it not change when we arrive? Why does it feel so indifferent? The deep ocean teaches without instruction. It does not correct us. It does not argue. It simply demonstrates again and again that survival there is not about dominance but alignment. Life that exists at great depth does not fight the environment. It fits into it. It becomes shaped by it so completely that separation is no longer possible. This is where human thinking begins to slow down. We are used to environments that respond to effort. Push hard enough and something moves. Apply enough force and systems bend. The deep ocean does not behave this way. Effort alone does not impress it. Strength does not persuade it. Speed is mostly irrelevant. Only patience works. And even patience has limits. In many ways, the deep ocean is the opposite of human civilization. Civilization expands outward, the deep ocean compresses inward. Civilization builds upward, the deep ocean presses downward. Civilization records itself loudly. The deep ocean keeps its records silent and intact. Perhaps that is why the idea of living permanently beneath the sea has always felt slightly unrealistic, even when technology suggests otherwise. It is not just the physical challenges, it is the psychological mismatch. Humans are creatures of horizon and light. We orient ourselves by distance and direction. The deep ocean offers neither. Down there, up and down are concepts rather than sensations. Day and night lose meaning. Time becomes measured in pressure cycles and system checks. The mind, deprived of familiar anchors, turns inward. Not dramatically, quietly. And quiet, sustained over long periods, has weight. This is not to say the deep ocean is empty of activity. Quite the opposite. Life continues with remarkable precision. Microorganisms drift. Creatures hunt, feed, and reproduce. Chemical processes shape entire landscapes. But none of this activity acknowledges observation. It does not perform. It does not accelerate when watched. It simply happens. For humans, this creates an unusual tension. We are drawn to the deep ocean precisely because it resists us, because it remains unexplained, because it does not respond emotionally to our presence. It is history without narrative, nature without commentary. And that can feel unsettling in a world that constantly explains itself. Late at night, when the pace of thought slows and the need for answers softens, the deep ocean feels less threatening and more honest. It stops being a challenge and starts being a reminder that not everything is meant to be occupied. Not everything is meant to be transformed. Some spaces exist simply to exist. The deep ocean does not ask humans to leave. It does not ask us to stay away. It simply continues at a depth we were never designed to inhabit. That quiet persistence is not rejection, it is neutrality. And neutrality, when it is absolute, can feel profound. So this chapter does not end with fear or triumph or warning. It ends with recognition. The understanding that the deep ocean is not unfinished, not waiting, and not incomplete without us. It is whole. It has always been whole. And when we float above it, listening late at night, allowing our thoughts to drift slowly downward, it offers something rare and strangely comforting, a place where human urgency finally stops mattering. Chapter 2: Pressure, Darkness, and the Rules of Survival, thousands of meters below. At a depth of several thousand meters, the ocean stops feeling like water and starts behaving like weight. Not weight in the sense of something you can lift or measure easily, but weight that arrives from all directions at once. Above you, below you, inside you. Pressure does not push you down. It presses you inward, quietly, constantly, without asking whether you are ready. At these depths, pressure is not dramatic. It does not roar or shake. It does not threaten. It simply exists, multiplying steadily with every meter you descend. The deeper you go, the more the ocean insists on one simple truth. Space is a privilege, not a right. Steel bends here, not violently but reluctantly, like something that has realized resistance is unnecessary. Glass does not crack slowly. It collapses instantly, as if embarrassed to have tried. And any organism designed for the surface ends its participation very quickly. This is not cruelty. It is accuracy. Pressure is physics, doing its job properly. For creatures of the deep, pressure is not an obstacle to overcome. It is the baseline condition of existence. Their bodies are built around it, shaped by it, softened for it. Bones are reduced or replaced. Air-filled spaces disappear entirely. Structures that would collapse on land function perfectly here. Nothing is rigid. Rigidity is inefficient. Humans, on the other hand, arrive wrapped in rigid ideas, hard shells, thick walls, reinforced structures. We try to bring surface logic downward, hoping it will hold. Sometimes it does briefly. Often it does not. The ocean is patient with these attempts. It allows the experiment to proceed until pressure reaches the point where negotiation ends, and then it continues being the ocean. There is something almost polite about the way pressure works. It does not single you out. It treats all matter equally: organic, inorganic, confident, uncertain. Everything is pressed the same way. Equality at depth is unavoidable. This is why the deep ocean feels calm rather than violent. Nothing needs to chase you, nothing needs to attack. The environment itself is enough. Survival is not about winning battles here. It is about fitting correctly into the equation. And most things from the surface do not. When humans describe the deep ocean as extreme, what we often mean is unfamiliar. The pressure does not spike suddenly. It does not surprise. It increases steadily, predictably, following rules that never change. The problem is not the rule. The problem is that we are not built to follow it. Pressure teaches one of the earliest lessons of the deep. Strength alone is meaningless. Adaptation matters. Flexibility matters. Being able to yield without breaking matters. The ocean does not reward stubbornness. It simply compresses it until it disappears. If pressure is the deep ocean's law, darkness is its atmosphere. Sunlight does not reach far beneath the surface. It fades quickly, then completely, leaving behind a space where vision becomes optional and color becomes irrelevant, not gradually forgotten, but fully unnecessary. In total darkness, appearances lose importance. Patterns, shades, and textures mean nothing if there is no light to reflect them. Beauty, as humans understand it, requires an audience. The deep ocean does not provide one. This absence of light does not feel empty. It feels settled. Creatures here do not miss the sun. They never needed it. Instead, they rely on chemical energy, faint bioluminescence, or sensitivity to movement so subtle it would go unnoticed on land. Darkness is not a disadvantage. It is the default. Some creatures produce their own light, not generously, not to illuminate the world, just enough to locate food, attract prey, or communicate briefly before returning to blackness. Light is expensive here. It is used carefully. Others abandon sight entirely. Eyes shrink, simplify, or vanish. There is no reason to carry what no longer serves a purpose. Evolution, at this depth, is efficient in a way that feels almost impolite. Nothing is decorative. In the deep ocean, survival is not about how you look. It is about how you function. Can you detect movement? Can you sense vibration? Can you locate nutrients in a place where meals drift slowly and unpredictably? Darkness forces honesty. On land, humans hide flaws with color, movement, and distraction. In the deep, there is nowhere to hide. Either you work or you don't. Either you endure or you vanish quietly into the system. This is why deep-sea creatures often appear unsettling to surface observers, not because they are aggressive, but because they are direct. Their forms reflect their needs without apology. Oversized mouths, extended jaws, soft, yielding bodies. Everything exists for a reason, and none of those reasons involve being pleasant to look at. From a biological perspective, this is success. From a human perspective, it feels uncomfortable. Darkness removes context. It erases distance. Without light, there is no horizon, no frame of reference. Space becomes abstract. Sound travels farther than sight. Time stretches. For humans, this creates unease. We rely on visual confirmation to feel oriented. The deep ocean denies us that reassurance entirely. And yet, life there is not confused by darkness. It is calm within it, organized, predictable. Darkness does not mean chaos. It means consistency. In the absence of light, the rules simplify. Eat when you can. Conserve energy. Avoid unnecessary motion. Stay alive. Nothing more is required. If pressure shapes the body and darkness reshapes perception, then evolution completes the process by removing anything unnecessary. In the deep ocean, natural selection does not hesitate. There is no room for extra features, no tolerance for inefficiency. Every trait must earn its place. If it does not contribute directly to survival, it fades away. This is where the idea of beauty quietly exits the conversation. Deep-sea evolution does not care if something looks disturbing, awkward, or unfinished. It does not care if humans would describe it as frightening. Those concepts do not exist at depth. There is only function. Can you eat? Can you avoid being eaten? Can you survive a little longer? These are the only questions that matter. Everything else is noise. This is why creatures of the deep often seem exaggerated. Mouths too large, teeth too sharp, bodies too thin or too soft. These are not design flaws. They are solutions. Energy is scarce. Food arrives unpredictably. Missing an opportunity can mean starvation. When prey appears, there is no time for elegance, only effectiveness. In this environment, subtlety looks like weakness. Humans often interpret this as brutality. In reality, it is clarity. There is no moral judgment in survival. There is no drama. There is no cruelty. There is simply continuation. The deep ocean does not reward effort. It rewards alignment. Creatures that match the environment persist, those that do not quietly disappear. This rule applies to humans as well. No amount of technology changes the fundamentals. We can shield ourselves briefly. We can observe from a distance. But our bodies, our senses, and our instincts remain surface-bound. We are visitors adapting temporarily, not residents evolving permanently. And that is fine. The unsettling feeling comes not from danger, but from realization. The realization that nature does not need to accommodate us, that entire systems can exist, thrive, and stabilize without any reference to human presence. Late at night, when the mind loosens its grip on control, this realization becomes less threatening and more gentle. It turns into perspective. The deep ocean is not rejecting us. It is simply continuing its work. Pressure holds. Darkness remains. Evolution refines. And life, shaped by forces older than memory, moves slowly forward in a place where nothing needs to be beautiful, only alive. Chapter 3. The creatures recorded in the deep sea. The first reaction most people have when they see creatures from the deep sea is not fear, but confusion. Something feels incorrect. The proportions do not line up with expectation. Mouths appear too large, as if they were added without regard for the rest of the body. Heads seem small, bodies thin, limbs elongated or softened to the point of looking unfinished. To a surface mind trained on symmetry and balance, these creatures look like design errors rather than outcomes. But the deep ocean does not measure success the way humans do. Down there, survival is not a matter of looking complete. It is a matter of being functional at the exact moment it matters. Food is rare, unpredictable, and often brief. When it appears, there is no time to negotiate proportions. A mouth larger than the head is not excessive. It is prepared. It increases the chance that the opportunity is not missed. In a place where missing one meal can mean waiting days or longer, preparation becomes everything. The deep ocean does not reward subtlety in form. It rewards certainty. This is why jaws extend so far, why teeth seem exaggerated, why bodies appear soft, flexible, and strangely delicate. Pressure does not tolerate rigidity. Hard structures collapse. Air-filled spaces become liabilities. What survives is what yields, what adapts, what bends without breaking. From a distance, these adaptations appear grotesque. From within the environment, they are ordinary. The idea of beauty does not exist at depth because it serves no purpose. Beauty requires an observer, a shared context, and time to appreciate. None of those are reliable below thousands of meters of water. Evolution does not waste energy on what cannot be used. It removes excess without apology. Humans often describe these creatures as monsters, but that says more about human expectation than deep-sea reality. Monsters in stories are defined by intent. They pursue, they threaten, they invade. Deep-sea creatures do none of these things. They do not hunt dramatically. They do not posture. They do not perform. They simply respond to stimuli in the most efficient way available to them. There is something quietly humbling about this. These beings do not exist to frighten anyone. They existed long before they were observed, and they would continue without any awareness of being seen at all. The unsettling feeling comes from realizing that our discomfort is irrelevant to their success. If these creatures were fictional, they would be criticized for being unrealistic, too extreme, too exaggerated, too careless in design. But nature, especially at depth, does not aim for realism as humans define it. It aims for persistence, and persistence in the deep ocean often looks strange to those who were never meant to live there. In the deep sea, light is not a background condition. It is an event. Sunlight disappears long before the deepest regions begin. Once it is gone, it does not gradually weaken. It ends. What remains is not gloom, but completeness. Darkness is not waiting to be interrupted. It is the default state. In this environment, producing light is a decision with consequences. Some creatures evolve bioluminescence, but never casually. Light costs energy, and energy is scarce. Every glow must justify itself. A faint lure dangling in the dark is not decoration. It is a tool. It attracts prey closer, shortening the distance between hunger and survival. When the moment passes, the light fades again, as if embarrassed to have existed at all. Other species use light defensively. Brief flashes disorient predators, disrupt depth perception, or create confusion long enough to escape. There is no sustained illumination, no desire to be seen. Darkness returns immediately, reclaiming the space. And many creatures choose not to glow at all. Invisibility at depth is often the safest adaptation. Darkness hides movement. Stillness conserves energy. Remaining unnoticed is not fear-based behavior. It is practical. In the deep ocean, drawing attention is rarely beneficial. This is deeply uncomfortable for humans to process. On land, light represents safety, warmth, and orientation. We turn on lights to feel in control. In the deep sea, light can make you vulnerable. Darkness is stability. The result is an environment where nothing is visually explained. Shapes emerge briefly and then disappear. Distances are difficult to judge. Motion is slow and deliberate. Without light, the mind loses familiar anchors. Space becomes abstract. For humans, this creates anxiety. We rely heavily on vision to confirm reality. Without it, imagination fills the gaps. But for deep sea life, darkness is not something to endure. It is something to use. Creatures here sense the world in other ways. Vibrations through water, pressure changes, chemical traces drifting slowly in currents. Awareness does not rely on sight alone. It is distributed across the body, subtle and constant. This makes deep-sea creatures feel distant and unreadable to us. There are no eyes to meet, no expressions to interpret, no signals that translate easily into human emotion. The absence of visual connection creates a quiet distance, and that distance is unsettling not because it is threatening, but because it is complete. Nothing in the deep sea tries to reassure us. Light does not soften the environment. Darkness does not hide danger. It simply removes decoration. What remains is function, stripped of comfort. At night, when surface lights dim and human spaces quiet down, this logic begins to feel less alien. The need for constant visibility fades. The mind slows. Darkness becomes less of a void and more of a condition. The deep ocean does not fear the dark. It understands it. Perhaps the most unsettling truth about deep-sea creatures is not how strange they look, but how normal they are within their environment. There is no panic in their movement, no urgency in their existence. They do not behave like survivors in danger. They behave like residents who understand their surroundings completely. Many species lack eyes entirely, not because something is missing, but because something was removed. Eyes stopped being useful once light disappeared. Carrying them became unnecessary. Evolution, uninterested in sentimentality, let them go. What remained was not deficiency, but efficiency. Life without sight does not mean life without awareness. These creatures sense pressure shifts, vibrations, and chemical signals with remarkable precision. The ocean communicates constantly through movement, and they listen without needing to see. Orientation does not come from horizons, but from gradients and currents. To humans, this feels disorienting. We look for faces. We seek recognition. We want to be acknowledged. Deep sea life offers none of this. There is no interest in being seen, no need to communicate across species, no curiosity about observers. This lack of response is often mistaken for hostility. In reality, it is neutrality. These creatures are not aggressive. They are not waiting. They are not lurking. They are simply existing in alignment with forces that shape them over immense stretches of time. Pressure, darkness, and scarcity are not obstacles to them. They are constants. The deep ocean did not become this way suddenly. It did not change in response to humans. Its rules were established long before we were capable of observing them. And the life that thrives there reflects that long, patient refinement. This is where the discomfort deepens. Not because the creatures are frightening, but because they are complete. They do not need adjustment. They do not need improvement. They do not need explanation. They are not unfinished. They are not mistakes. They are appropriate. Late at night, when the mind releases its demand for familiarity, this realization becomes gentler. The deep ocean stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a reminder. A reminder that not all life revolves around visibility, beauty, or recognition. Some environments reward attention, others reward alignment. The deep sea belongs to the latter, and the creatures that live there, strange only to us, move through it calmly, efficiently, and without concern for being understood. Chapter 4: Things that do not belong on the ocean floor, yet remain there. Beneath the ocean floor, the objects that humans have left behind do not announce themselves. They do not beg to be noticed, and yet their presence is persistent. A statue may rest at a gentle tilt, its contours softened by the slow pressure of water and sediment. Metal machines, once gleaming, now carry a dullness that speaks of time stretching without hurry. Pieces of wreckage from unknown ships lie scattered, fragments of stories whose authors have long been forgotten. Each object is passive, content to exist, yet commanding attention simply by refusing disappearance. It is tempting to ascribe drama to these artifacts, to imagine some mysterious story behind every cylinder, every slab, every tangle of machinery, but most often the reason is unremarkable. They were dropped, abandoned, or forgotten. A tool fell from a deck during a storm. Equipment was jettisoned after failing to perform. Cargo sank quietly, and no one recorded it. There was no plot, no hero, no villain. There was only the pull of gravity and the patient, indifferent water waiting to accept what humans relinquish. In the deep ocean, significance is irrelevant. What matters is existence. A statue may once have conveyed status, devotion, or pride. Now it communicates only solidity and presence. A machine designed to move, to power, to accomplish tasks lies inert, its energy spent long ago. Corrosion begins its work, softening sharp edges and blending human objects into the seabed as if they had always belonged there. The ocean edits slowly with immense patience, and it never asks whether the artifact was ever important. Even the smallest pieces, broken glass, a fragment of wood, a plastic casing, speak to the same principle, permanence without judgment. The ocean does not decide what deserves remembrance. It does not elevate objects based on beauty or intention. It does not protect or discard selectively. It simply accumulates. Over centuries, layers of sediment, silt, and microbial life will envelop these objects, integrating them into an ecosystem entirely indifferent to their origins. They become quiet monuments to human impermanence. And so, beneath thousands of meters of water, the seabed functions as a vast passive archive. It holds what humans left behind, not for posterity, not for study, not for drama, but simply because once things reach this depth, they stay. Gravity does the sorting, Water does the preservation, and time continues quietly, without urgency, without spectacle, without expectation. Among the most remarkable items on the ocean floor are machines once designed for action. Engines, turbines, instruments, created to measure, move, or destroy, now lie dormant, disarmed by depth and pressure. A torpedo that once represented precision, speed, and lethality rests inert, its casing corroded, its threat nullified by distance and time. Submarines, designed to navigate and protect, have become silent sculptures, their purpose neutralized by the surrounding water. Even military equipment, which was once associated with command and authority, loses all significance when removed from context. Weapons designed for timing, secrecy, and efficiency are transformed by the ocean into simple matter. Metal slowly oxidizes, paint erodes, bolts loosen. The object's original intentions, whether protection, deterrence, or destruction, vanish. What remains is material, a reminder that power, in isolation from narrative and observation, is meaningless. Time in the deep ocean has a flattening effect. Every object, regardless of history or value, experiences it equally. Identification marks fade, serial numbers corrode, logos disappear. What was classified becomes anonymous, what was feared becomes inert. The ocean shows no partiality. It does not favor importance. It does not recognize significance. Objects are preserved only as substance, not as story. Even objects of great complexity, control panels, sensors, vehicles, are absorbed into the environment. Corals may creep over their surfaces. Sediment softens their edges. Fish may inhabit cavities, originally designed to house machinery. Over centuries, the line between artifact and habitat blurs. The ocean neither honors nor desecrates. It continues. And in this stillness, the irony is subtle yet profound. The very tools humans created to exert control, to impose order, to assert urgency, are rendered powerless by the most patient of forces. The ocean does not fight, it does not chase. It simply allows, and in doing so, teaches a quiet lesson about impermanence, patience, and the illusion of control. Not every object on the ocean floor arrives dramatically. Many settle quietly as a result of forgetfulness, carelessness, or circumstance. A chair from a sunken vessel, a cable lost during maintenance, fragments of tools abandoned mid-task. There is no heroism, no tragedy, no grand story. These items are ordinary, yet in their ordinariness, they become extraordinary. The ocean, impartial and patient, records their existence as faithfully as it does monuments or machines. Over centuries, forgotten objects are integrated into the environment. Metal corrodes. Coral, sponges, and algae attach themselves. Fish find shelter. Sand and silt cover surfaces unevenly. What once disrupted the seafloor becomes a subtle component of it. The object's original meanings vanish. They are no longer human possessions. They are simply part of the ecosystem. This transformation emphasizes a truth uncomfortable for humans. History does not require attention to endure. The ocean archives passively, without choice, without classification. Everything that sinks is kept regardless of perceived importance, function, or beauty. The seabed becomes an accidental library, vast and silent, accumulating matter and memory without curation. Late at night, considering this, it is easy to feel small, even irrelevant. The ocean does not need our recognition. Our stories, our intentions, even our mistakes, All are secondary to the simple fact of matter existing and persisting. And perhaps that is its lesson. Permanence is not granted by significance. It is granted by surrender to conditions greater than ourselves, by the quiet accumulation that follows, indifferent, patient, and complete. In this light, the seabed is neither mysterious nor threatening. It is a mirror of neutrality, a place where human urgency dissolves and objects, no matter their origin, their purpose, or their importance, exist simply because they can. The ocean does not sort, judge, or discard. It does not prioritize or forget. It keeps everything equally, silently, and without expectation. Chapter 5, Shipwrecks, When History Freezes Underwater. Every shipwreck carries within it a moment of time frozen, not the dramatic climax imagined in stories, not the cacophony of panic or fear, not the carefully orchestrated narrative of heroes or villains. Instead, each vessel becomes an artifact, a quiet repository of circumstance, preserved by the indifferent embrace of water and sediment. The moment is neither celebrated nor mourned. There is no soundtrack, no commentator, only the metal hull, the wood, the cargo, and the patient accumulation of history. These ships vary widely, yet their stories converge in stillness. Some are merchant vessels laden with goods intended to circulate in a world above the waves. Others are military, built for strategy, authority, or protection. Some are exploratory, carrying instruments, notes, or specimens meant to expand human knowledge. Each is caught in an instant where purpose ceased, yet existence persisted. The ocean does not demand that a story conclude. It does not care for resolution or interpretation. It only records. The physical presence of a shipwreck is striking even in the absence of narrative. Hulls, masts, and cargo maintain positions that defy expectation. Twisted metal resists collapse for centuries. Planks settle into sediment slowly. Cargo coins, ceramics, tools remains in compartments as though their contents understand the time has slowed, that human oversight is no longer relevant. In this frozen tableau, failure has no drama. Success is irrelevant. Survival is measured not by intent, but by persistence. Shipwrecks also teach quietly about patience and the transformation of time. The hull that was rigid and unyielding above the surface gradually conforms to the environment below. Water seeps in. Pressure reshapes. Corrosion works with precision. Yet nothing hurries. There is no rush, no attempt to erase, no lesson demanded. The water does not judge the human endeavor that brought this vessel here. It only unfolds it slowly, carefully, and evenly. One of the most humbling aspects of shipwrecks is the subtle interaction between the vessel and its surroundings. Fish and crustaceans find shelter within voids. Sediment forms gentle drifts around the hull. Coral, slowly colonizing the surfaces, integrates the ship into the ecosystem. What once was designed for commerce, war, or exploration now becomes part of a living environment. And yet the human intention, though invisible, lingers quietly in every plank, bolt, and artifact. The ocean does not rewrite history. It does not explain. It does not celebrate. It does not condemn. It preserves. And in doing so, it shows that history does not always require audience or interpretation to endure. Moments persist, frozen by circumstance and water, waiting for notice or not indifferent to human memory, expectation, or narrative. Time works differently underwater. On land, years are measured in change, invisible progress, in decay or construction. Underwater, time is gentle and persistent, shaping slowly but inevitably. Metal corrodes, not violently but systematically. Wood softens and bends gradually, responding to pressure and moisture. Sediment drifts into every crevice, cushioning, covering, and preserving simultaneously. The ocean's hand is quiet and precise. Shipwrecks are archives of this process. They contain objects intended for very specific purposes. Cargo was meant to feed, to sell, to arm, to entertain. Tools were meant to work, charts were meant to guide. Yet all of these functions cease the moment the vessel is immobilized. The ocean does not repurpose these objects. It does not care for their intended use. It merely maintains presence. The cargo becomes part of the seabed's rhythm. The tools become objects of sedimentary attention. Charts dissolve, leaving ink traces that may survive decades or centuries depending on composition. The juxtaposition is subtle, almost humorous in its quietness. Human endeavors designed for action, for speed, for effectiveness, are reduced to matter. A cannon rests against a mound of sand, silent. A wheel no longer turns. Ceramics remain stacked, unbroken, not out of care, but due to the patience of water and silt. The intention once embedded in these objects, a desire for impact, for commerce, for conquest, is neutralized. There is no legacy without observer. Only persistence remains. Even the remnants of catastrophe, the twisted steel and shattered wood, carry no urgency. A storm may have sunk the vessel, a collision may have ended its journey, but once the ship settles, chaos is transformed into stability. Pressure and sediment slowly dominate. Sharp edges are softened. Hollow spaces fill. Every fragment is accounted for, not by human attention, but by gravity and patience. Shipwrecks also remind us of human absence. Crew, passengers, owners, those who intended the journey, are removed from the picture. The vessel remains, but the narrative of intention, fear, or triumph is gone. It is replaced by matter, arranged quietly by circumstance and environment. In this way, shipwrecks differ from artifacts on land. They are less curated, less contextualized. They exist without ceremony, without interpretation, without expectation. For those who study them, this creates a paradoxical sense of intimacy and distance. One can examine the plank, the bolt, the cargo, the curvature of the hull, yet the human story is obscured. The objects are personal, yet anonymous. They are immediate, yet frozen. They reveal as much about environment as about history, and most of all, they insist that history underwater is not written in drama, but in endurance. Shipwrecks also illustrate the ocean's role as custodian of frozen histories. Unlike archives on land, which depend on care, cataloging, and interpretation, underwater archives exist independently. They are preserved through stillness. They endure because the environment maintains them gently and consistently. Gravity, pressure, and sediment replace archivists, curators, and historians. The ocean does not interpret, classify, or prioritize. It simply keeps quietly and persistently. This gives shipwrecks a certain humility. They do not boast. They do not assert importance. They do not demand attention. A vessel may remain for hundreds of years, its presence visible only to the occasional submersible or diver, yet it maintains integrity within the environment. Time passes, but the moment of sinking is retained in form, in placement, in orientation. The ocean does not alter the record beyond physical transformation. It does not rewrite the past. It does not apologize for it. There is also a subtle interplay between shipwrecks and living ecosystems. Corals, algae, sponges, and fish integrate these objects into the environment, transforming utilitarian metal and wood into habitat. The shipwreck becomes part of life cycles rather than simply a marker of death or loss. Its purpose evolves, unobserved and without intention. Human narratives fade, but life continues around and through these frozen histories. The quietness is profound. There is no need for music, commentary, or dramatization. A sunken vessel speaks without words. Its message is patience, persistence, and endurance. The ocean demonstrates that history does not require attention to exist. The failure, the catastrophe, or the accident that led to the sinking is irrelevant once the vessel settles. What matters is matter, position, and time. Shipwrecks also challenge human concepts of permanence. On land, we associate legacy with visibility and recognition. Underwater, permanence is achieved without observation. Objects persist because the environment preserves them, not because anyone witnesses them. Success and failure are irrelevant. Significance is deferred. Everything continues quietly in equilibrium with forces far older than human concern. Late at night, contemplating shipwrecks, one realizes that history is not always dramatic. It is sometimes silent, unobserved, and patient. The ocean does not annotate, celebrate, or forget. It simply holds everything in place. The ships, the cargo, the fragments of human ambition, they all remain, anchored in sediment, shaped by water, enduring without comment. In this way, shipwrecks remind us that history is a matter of persistence, not attention. Moments can freeze. Events can endure. Human stories may vanish, but their artifacts, their traces, and the echoes of their purpose survive quietly, under the water, waiting, indifferent, complete. Chapter 6: Sounds, Movements, and Unexplained Phenomena. In the deep ocean, sound is the dominant messenger. Light, once relied upon at the surface, disappears within a few meters of descent. Darkness swallows color, contours, and shape, leaving only black and silence. Yet sound moves effortlessly through water, carrying across kilometers, sometimes tens, sometimes hundreds, connecting distant places without sight, without form. Human ears are inadequate for these frequencies, their hearing designed for the surface world, tuned to the patterns and distances that air allows. Underwater, sound becomes strange, stretching, bending, and whispering across a world entirely alien to human perception. Scientists, patiently recording, have identified anomalies that resist explanation. Frequencies appear that do not match known marine life. Vibrations are detected with no clear source. The ocean itself seems to murmur, sometimes in pulses, sometimes as a low, continuous hum. The recordings are clinical. Researchers write notes in muted, calm language. Unidentified, anomalous, insufficient data. In the laboratory, these words carry authority. They reassure. They suggest careful observation. Translated into everyday language, however, they convey a different message entirely. We do not know what we are hearing. And that is perhaps the most unsettling realization. In a medium where everything is amplified, where the environment itself communicates through motion and resonance, humans are not fully equipped to interpret the signals. They are outsiders, hearing echoes, vibrations, and tones without context, suspended in an environment that does not prioritize clarity or explanation. There is a subtle humor in the restraint of scientific reporting. These mysterious sounds are cataloged, analyzed, and discussed as if naming them diminishes the unknown. Yet the ocean, patient and indifferent, continues its symphony of clicks, pulses, and reverberations, unconcerned by human attempts at categorization. Every unidentified hum is a reminder that mastery of this space is partial at best, a soft rebuke to human curiosity. Amid these sounds, life persists quietly. Creatures move with awareness, interpreting signals we cannot fully perceive. Predation, mating, navigation, all continue through channels humans cannot hear. To the ocean, mystery is ordinary. To humans, the same mystery is deeply intriguing, slightly humorous, and quietly unsettling all at once. Beyond sound, the ocean communicates through motion. Currents ripple across kilometers unseen, shaping sediment and affecting the tiniest organisms. Vibrations, sometimes imperceptible to human sensors, move through structures and objects, conveying information about collisions, movement, and the slow processes of erosion. Every rock, every ridge, every buried object interacts with water, and every movement is transmitted, amplified, and echoed through the medium. Scientists record these vibrations, and often the data defy immediate explanation. Patterns emerge that suggest activity, but the source remains elusive. Machines are deployed to measure these currents and resonances, but the ocean's complexity exceeds their precision. Every measurement is provisional, every conclusion tentative. Terminology such as inconclusive, unidentified source, or data insufficient is applied carefully, creating a sense of calm control in reports. Yet beneath that calm is an admission. The ocean's language is not fully understood. Human interpretations are limited by expectation. We look for patterns similar to those on land, but the ocean's signals obey no terrestrial logic. They are shaped by density, pressure, temperature, and vast distances. Vibrations travel in unpredictable ways, refracted and bent by underwater topography. A sound or motion may be recorded hundreds of kilometers from its origin, making location and cause exceedingly difficult to determine. There is an almost comedic humility in this process. Highly advanced instruments built with human precision and ingenuity can capture data beyond our imagination, yet the result is often a notation that reads simply, "We are not sure what is happening." It is a gentle, ironic reminder of our place. For all our technology, the ocean retains the upper hand, persistent, patient, and infinitely complex. And so, below the surface, the ocean is alive with signals, currents, and vibrations that humans cannot fully interpret. These are not threats or warnings. They are not messages directed at us. They are ordinary functions of a world that is vast, fluid, and indifferent. Human curiosity encounters limits, and in that encounter, a quiet awe emerges, accompanied by a soft, almost wry recognition of our own inadequacy. Among all these phenomena, perhaps the most unsettling is how ordinary they are to the ocean itself. Unidentified sounds, unusual vibrations, and subtle movements are not considered abnormal. There is no alarm, there is no reaction. To the deep sea, they are routine. The creatures inhabiting these spaces interpret these cues, adjusting behavior, navigating, hunting, or avoiding threats without hesitation. Humans, conversely, approach these occurrences with curiosity, caution, and sometimes anxiety. The contrast between human concern and the ocean's indifference is striking. In this environment, human definitions of explanation or understanding are limited. Every recording of an anomalous frequency, every detection of unknown movement, carries a sense of incompleteness. Scientific papers use careful language, creating a veneer of control over what is essentially unknowable in full. Pending analysis, unverified source, further research required. Phrases designed to reassure. In translation, they acknowledge something deeper. We hear, but we do not comprehend. The ocean's patient symphony continues regardless. Time and water are the curators, preserving sounds and motions without commentary. A shipwreck creaks, a sediment shift occurs, a creature moves, all recorded as part of a system indifferent to recognition. Patterns may emerge over decades, centuries, or millennia. Human attention is fleeting. The ocean's persistence is infinite. There is a subtle, dry humor in this contrast. No matter the sophistication of human tools, the ocean remains the quiet authority, slowly and relentlessly maintaining its own rhythms. There is also a gentle beauty in the ordinary. Vibrations that appear random may reveal themselves as signals used by deep-sea life. Unidentified sounds may turn out to be the slow grinding of tectonic plates, the distant passage of currents, or the echo of natural processes invisible to surface eyes. Even in uncertainty, there is consistency. The ocean is patient, and in that patience, it teaches a calm, unhurried rhythm that humans seldom encounter. Late at night, considering these sounds and movements, one might feel both humbled and soothed. The ocean does not demand understanding. It does not rush. It does not offer clarity. It merely exists, carrying and transmitting its signals, unobserved or unexplained, with the steady patience of a world older than humans and more enduring than their curiosity. To inhabit this space, even mentally, is to surrender urgency. One listens, not to decipher, but to experience. One observes, not to categorize, but to acknowledge. And in that quiet recognition, the deep sea reveals itself as a master of calm, persistence, and subtle, unassuming complexity. The sounds persist, the vibrations persist, the unexplained persists. And humans, for a brief moment, are invited to listen. Chapter 7. When Humans Try to Stay in the Deep Sea. Humans have always been curious about the deep sea. The surface world is familiar, manageable, predictable. Beneath the waves lies a landscape that resists comprehension, a realm that challenges physiology, perception, and patience. To explore it for extended periods, people have constructed habitats, sometimes entire stations beneath the water, designed to mimic life above. Lights simulate day. Air is filtered and regulated. Temperature and pressure are moderated. In theory, the human body should adapt. In practice, it does not. These underwater stations are remarkable feats of engineering. Cylinders of metal and glass, anchored and stabilized, filled with supplies, equipment, and emergency systems. Every surface calculated, every structure tested. People can move, eat, sleep, and even socialize as though they were on land. For a moment, it seems the impossible has been achieved. Humans have brought their world into another alien domain. The illusion is comforting, almost charming. Yet comfort is fleeting. The deep sea is patient but persistent in its indifference. Gravity, pressure, and isolation conspire slowly, subtly. Muscles and joints, unaccustomed to the higher density of water and altered atmospheric conditions, begin to respond differently. Circulation adjusts awkwardly, sleep cycles shift, and senses react unexpectedly to sounds and vibrations amplified through water. The body protests gently at first, then more insistently. Psychological challenges emerge alongside physical ones. Darkness outside the reinforced glass, absence of natural cues, and prolonged isolation can magnify anxiety. Hours blend, days blend. The mind, trained for surfaces, struggles to maintain perspective in a world where everything familiar has been simulated. Time stretches. Even conversation takes on a peculiar weight, as voices echo slightly differently underwater, creating a subtle sense of disconnection. Despite technology, preparation, and careful planning, humans consistently encounter the same truth. The deep sea is not hospitable. The habitat may be secure, the air breathable, the lighting adjustable, yet the human organism and the human mind remains unsuited. Every attempt to remain longer is a dialogue with an environment that neither welcomes nor punishes. It simply exists. The body's discomfort is gentle, persistent, unavoidable. The mind's awareness of isolation is equally insistent, subtle but unyielding. Engineers and scientists continue their work, adjusting parameters, monitoring health, and studying behavior. Success is measured in hours and days, sometimes weeks, but rarely longer. The pattern is consistent. Humans must leave eventually. Departure is not dramatic, not catastrophic. It is quiet, practical, and entirely ordinary. The ocean has no opinion. It has simply reminded its guests of the natural boundaries with a patience that is almost humorous in its persistence. Living underwater is an exercise in constant adaptation, a subtle battle between human design and biological limits. Pressure, though moderated in habitats, is never identical to that at the surface. It presses gently, persistently against every body cavity, shifting fluids, affecting balance and proprioception. Tasks that feel automatic on land, lifting, reaching, walking, become exercises in recalibration. Fine motor control is challenged by resistance, by the ever-present influence of surrounding water density. Movements once effortless acquire a weight that is unfamiliar, slightly discouraging, and inescapable. Even when seated, the body is engaged. Muscles maintain tension to support posture, joints register every change in orientation, and the heart adjusts continuously to maintain circulation. Energy is expended differently. Fatigue accumulates in ways that are neither sudden nor catastrophic, but persistent, creeping, unavoidable. The ocean's presence is never violent. It is polite in its insistence, relentless in its subtlety. Psychological effects mirror the physical. The absence of natural rhythms, sunlight, wind, tides, creates a perceptual vacuum. Days and nights are artificially signaled, yet the mind senses the underlying discrepancy. Sleep cycles may shift. Dreams acquire strange textures, mixing surface memories with abstract underwater impressions. Isolation from surface activity amplifies introspection, sometimes to the point of mild disorientation. Communication, though clear, feels altered. Words float differently, distances seem subtlety distorted. A sense of space becomes abstract, fluid, impossible to fix in familiar coordinates. Attempts to normalize the experience are necessary but insufficient. Exercise routines, mental games, social interaction, even reading or observing small fish tanks, all work against a backdrop that refuses complete familiarity. The body is aware, the mind is aware, and yet both must pretend otherwise to endure the prolonged presence. Over time, small irritations accumulate. Minor aches, subtle fatigue, and a persistent awareness of dislocation combine into a quiet but consistent pressure on the psyche. Researchers have recorded these patterns across multiple missions. Every participant exhibits similar physiological and psychological responses, regardless of training or preparation. The conclusion is clear. This is not a matter of insufficient technology. Humans are not failing the ocean. The ocean is simply indifferent to the anatomical and cognitive structures humans possess. The attempt to remain is noble, insightful, sometimes whimsical, yet ultimately futile in the long term. Leaving is inevitable. The decision is rarely dramatic, rarely a result of acute distress. It is a quiet acknowledgement that the body and mind require surfaces. Every mission ends similarly, a small retreat, a practical reorientation toward the world above water. And the ocean, patient as always, observes nothing. It continues its rhythms, waves, and currents, untouched by human presence, amused perhaps only by our attempts at persistence in a world where persistence is not designed for us. Repeated underwater habitation experiments offer lessons that are subtle, quiet, and gently humbling. Human ambition is immense, capable of remarkable adaptation, yet the species is ultimately limited by biological design. No amount of engineering can fully replace the evolutionary conditions in which humans evolved. Limbs, lungs, bones, and cognitive patterns are tuned for surface pressures, for light cycles, and for atmospheric composition. Displace these parameters, and the organism responds, not with sudden catastrophe, but with persistent, unyielding discomfort. The deep sea is not hostile in the conventional sense. It does not attack or punish. It imposes constraints subtly and consistently. The body adapts, but only so far. The mind adjusts, but only temporarily. Attempts to live as on land are met with endurance testing rather than immediate crisis. Every day spent below, every task performed, every routine observed, is a reminder that humans are temporary guests whose presence is tolerated but never fully harmonized with the environment. Interestingly, humor often emerges among the crew. Minor irritations, quirks of equipment, and the persistent unfamiliarity of surroundings become sources of shared amusement. The ocean, through its persistent indifference, encourages humility and subtle wit. Scientists joke about the absurdity of brushing teeth under artificial lights while fish swim by outside. Engineers laugh at systems that behave slightly differently due to pressure. The humor is quiet, understated, and gentle, a coping mechanism in an environment designed for endurance rather than ease. Ultimately, the lesson is not failure nor even limitation. It is recognition. Humans are capable of ingenuity, creativity, and persistence, yet biology and environment remain defining parameters. Technology extends capabilities but cannot fully rewrite anatomy. The deep sea teaches patience, respect, and an almost lyrical understanding of limits. Each mission concludes with departure. People ascend, returning to gravity, to sunlight, to air, with all its familiar density and variability. The ocean does not mark the event. It does not applaud nor admonish. The stations remain maintained or abandoned, while life outside continues unaffected. Human presence is brief, quiet, and transient. The ocean endures, patient and impartial, as it always has. Late at night, contemplating these efforts, one realizes that the deep sea is not a place of conquest but of observation, reflection, and humility. Attempts to inhabit it long term are exercises in patience, endurance, and gentle self-awareness. Technology can provide comfort, control, and protection, yet it cannot replace the evolutionary design inherent to the species. The ocean, unperturbed, continues its rhythms, teaching in silence what humans cannot replicate. Calm persistence, subtle adaptation, and the beauty of limits. Chapter 8. The Unexplored Regions of the Ocean. Most of the ocean floor remains unseen. Vast expanses of sediment, rock, and abyssal plains stretch far beyond the reach of sunlight and human eyes. Mapping is incomplete. Names are scarce. Even the most detailed charts leave blank spaces, areas designated as unknown, awaiting the slow progress of exploration. These gaps are not empty. They are alive with matter, energy, and processes that continue silently. Life persists, geography shifts, and history unfolds, entirely without human notice. To imagine the unexplored ocean is to imagine presence without recognition. Mountains rise and fall under the weight of water. Currents shape the sediment like invisible sculptors. Thermal vents pulse with heat and chemicals, forming localized ecosystems whose rhythms are entirely alien. Creatures adapted to extreme pressure and darkness thrive, hunt, reproduce, and die, all beyond observation. Each moment is complete, self-contained, indifferent to the human desire to witness or catalog. The absence of observation does not diminish existence. A ridge remains imposing, even if it has never been named. A trench continues to deepen, unaffected by maps, charts, or research vessels. The ocean's processes care not for recognition. They are self-sufficient, persistent, and patient. To humans, the unknown can feel mysterious, ominous, or incomplete. To the ocean, it is ordinary, entirely expected, and entirely unconcerned with interpretation. Historians of the deep, if such a title were meaningful underwater, would note that absence of records does not equal absence of events. Geological movements, chemical cycles, and biological interactions continue in every unexplored corner. The life that thrives there does not wait for acknowledgement. Predation occurs, growth occurs, decay occurs, entirely indifferent to human attention. Every unknown trench and ridge is a theater of continuity, operating without commentary, without observation, without interference. Curiosity drives humans to probe these spaces. Submersibles, remote-operated vehicles, sonar mapping, and cameras are sent into the unknown. They reveal glimpses, an outcrop of rock, a school of bioluminescent creatures, a vent releasing warmth and minerals. Each discovery is a reminder that the majority of the environment is still unseen. For every area mapped, countless more remain untouched, unobserved, and indifferent. The ocean's vastness is a slow lesson in humility. Even in scientific reporting, language remains careful, measured, patient. Words like unexplored, unmapped, and unknown communicate restraint and caution. Beneath the surface, they hint at a truth that is both simple and profound. The ocean exists independently of our understanding, and our knowledge is merely an addition, not a prerequisite to its ongoing existence. In these unobserved regions, life flourishes in ways that are astonishing yet subtle. Adaptations emerge not for spectacle but for survival, refined by the environment over millennia. Creatures of extraordinary shapes, colors, and behaviors exist in complete obscurity. Some produce light to lure prey, others develop shells or armor impervious to predators. Eyes may be absent entirely, bodies may defy surface logic, yet function perfectly in context. Their existence does not require notice, applause, or comprehension. Similarly, history continues unrecorded. Shipwrecks, debris, and remnants of human activity may drift into these areas, sometimes resting silently for decades or centuries. Even human absence does not equate to lifelessness. Geological events, underwater landslides, volcanic eruptions, shifting tectonic plates, continue their slow work, reshaping the environment without fanfare. Currents carve channels and valleys that will never appear on any map. Biochemical processes unfold, creating localized conditions that support unique ecosystems. Every action is complete, precise, and independent of observation. The contrast between observed and unobserved space is subtle but profound. In observed areas, we assign names, track movement, and impose categories. In unobserved areas, nothing demands explanation. Patterns exist, processes occur, but they require no interpreter. The ocean does not need us to notice to maintain order or continuity. Its rhythms are intrinsic, patient, and deliberate without deliberate intent. For humans, the realization can be humbling and oddly comforting. There is continuity in the absence of attention. Life and processes do not require validation. The ocean does not care for comprehension. Knowledge is additive, not prescriptive. This uncaring constancy contrasts sharply with the surface world, where observation, measurement, and judgment often define significance. In the unexplored deep, significance exists inherently, independent of perception. Exploration, when it occurs, is brief and fragmentary. Cameras capture moments, sonar sketches vague contours, sensors record chemical, physical, and biological data. These glimpses are precious precisely because they are rare. Yet for every area illuminated, countless kilometers remain untouched. Every photograph, every data point, every recorded observation is a minor addition to an environment that will continue its quiet processes, unaltered, unbothered, and unobserved. The unexplored ocean teaches a lesson in patience, persistence, and humility. It exists not for humans to catalog or understand, but for processes and life that continue regardless of attention. Mountains of sediment shift slowly. Currents meander without hurry. Thermal vents pulse steadily. Ecosystems emerge, stabilize, and dissolve quietly in accordance with forces far older than human curiosity. Human perception is limited, our maps partial. For every submersible that returns with images, for every sensor array deployed, there remain vast regions untouched. The unknown is not threatening, it is simply vast, patient, and autonomous. There is a subtle humor in human attempts to master it, calculating coordinates, taking readings, naming trenches against a backdrop of persistence that requires no recognition. Unobserved areas also reveal the resilience of life. Organisms have adapted to extreme pressure, near freezing temperatures, and perpetual darkness. Symbiotic relationships form, predator and prey interact, and biological cycles continue in ways humans have yet to fully comprehend. Evolution occurs quietly in parallel to the human understanding, or lack thereof, of its existence. These ecosystems are complete, self-sustaining, and independent. Even historical processes unfold unnoticed. Sediment accumulates over centuries. Organic matter decomposes. Minerals precipitate. Rocks shift imperceptibly. Shipwrecks, remnants of human exploration or commerce, may find resting places in these unknown areas. Their stories are partially preserved by circumstance, yet largely hidden, leaving the ocean as the sole witness. Late at night, contemplating these regions is like listening to a symphony without sound. The ocean exists without announcement. History, life, and movement continue without attention. Our curiosity is not required for continuity. Human observation adds only a faint layer of recognition, a brief acknowledgement, before the ocean resumes its vast, patient, indifferent rhythms. The unexplored ocean reminds us that existence does not depend on attention, processes do not require observers, life does not need witnesses. The deep sea continues quietly, continuously, endlessly. Human knowledge is fleeting. The ocean endures. And perhaps that is the most gentle and humbling lesson of all. To witness is a privilege, not a prerequisite. Chapter 9. The ocean is not scary, only indifferent. The deep ocean is not frightening. It does not plan, it does not scheme, it does not wait for anyone to arrive. There is no consciousness, no intent, no agenda. What exists is matter, water, pressure, and the slow rhythm of natural law. The ocean does not chase. It does not lie in ambush. It simply continues in the quietest, most patient way possible. Silence is its constant companion, and time moves differently here, extended, deliberate, and undisturbed by human expectation. To be in the deep sea is to be reminded of one simple truth. Existence does not require notice. Fish swim, plankton drift, sediments settle, and currents meander, entirely unconcerned with human observation or interference. Objects dropped or lost, remnants of human activity, are absorbed without commentary, without judgment. Even the most spectacular natural features, trenches, hydrothermal vents, mountain ridges, are unperturbed by whether humans witness them or not. Their scale, their complexity, and their persistence are inherent, independent of perception. Humans, on the other hand, are rarely comfortable with indifference. Our stories require acknowledgement, our significance is measured by attention, and our sense of safety is tied to control. The ocean refuses all of these comforts. Its indifference is absolute, gentle, yet profoundly unsettling. Observing it, one realizes that fear is often a projection of self-importance. There is nothing to fear here, only to acknowledge humans do not matter, at least not in the way we are accustomed to mattering. In this environment, even creatures that might seem terrifying on the surface are simply executing their lives. Bioluminescent predators lure prey not with malice, but with evolution's quiet efficiency. Crustaceans scuttle across the sediment because that is their place in the ecosystem. Predation, survival, adaptation, all operate in accordance with natural law, not with conscious intent. The ocean's indifference is not cruelty. It is law, applied uniformly, impartially. without recognition of human presence or expectation. There is a subtle humor here for those who observe with patience. Humans often enter these spaces expecting drama, risk, and peril. They prepare elaborate instruments, submersibles, and safety protocols. They anticipate danger as if it were inherent. The reality is quieter, stranger, and infinitely more patient. Danger exists only in relative terms, not as a conscious agent. The ocean does not plot, plan, or react. It merely is. The ocean obeys its own rules, the same rules that have persisted for millions of years. Pressure increases with depth. Temperature falls, light vanishes. Chemical and geological processes continue, entirely independent of observation. These are immutable laws, and the ocean follows them without deviation. Human beings are bound by different rules, laws of biology, perception, and gravity. But those rules have little relevance here. The ocean neither honors nor dismisses them. It simply continues. Consider the silence, both literal and figurative. Sound travels far below, yet it is neither communicative nor judgmental. Vibrations ripple through the water, particles shift, organisms respond, and sediment settles, all without attention or care for who might be listening. Currents move objects, water shapes the landscape, and history, geological, biological, human, accumulates quietly. Every moment unfolds, independent of recognition. The ocean does not reward curiosity. It does not punish ignorance. It is entirely impartial, entirely consistent. Human discomfort often arises not from danger, but from this absence of concern. On land, attention matters. Authority, recognition, reaction, all shape experience. Underwater, the rules of consequence are stripped of social relevance. A diver might marvel at an abyssal trench, a hydrothermal vent, or a school of glowing creatures, and all that exists outside of that observer's attention will remain unchanged. The ocean continues its processes, unhurried, undisturbed, indifferent. There is poetry in this indifference. Time, pressure, life, and matter exist as they have always existed. Objects drift and settle, sediment accumulates, biological and chemical interactions unfold, and the world maintains its rhythm without human interference. Human observation adds only a thin veneer of narrative, a temporary acknowledgement that passes as quickly as it arrives. The ocean itself does not participate, does not note, does not respond. It is a world complete in its own right, self-sufficient, persistent, and silent. This perspective can feel humbling, even unsettling. Humans are accustomed to influence and consequence. We anticipate effects, expect feedback, and measure significance through attention. The deep sea refuses these expectations. Its laws operate independently of human knowledge. Its processes continue whether we are aware or oblivious. There is no malice, there is no neglect. There is simply presence, persistence, and continuation. Truths that are deeply simple, yet profoundly difficult for the human mind to fully accept. The most unsettling truth of the deep ocean is not that it is dangerous, it is that humans do not matter there. Every creature, every current, every geological process proceeds without regard for attention, desire, or expectation. Sunken ships, lost equipment, and natural features are preserved or transformed according to the ocean's laws, not ours. Existence itself is independent of significance, and that independence is absolute. This realization, while disquieting, can also be profoundly calming. Danger is often imagined, anticipation often exaggerated. The ocean does not plan harm. It does not take interest. It does not wait for recognition. It moves according to rules that predate humans by millions of years and will persist long after our attention fades. Awareness of this imparts a quiet sense of humility. There is no drama, no judgment, no favoritism, only consistency, endurance, and patient persistence. Even human attempts to measure, observe, and explore are ultimately small perturbations in a vast, indifferent system. Submersibles descend, instruments record, cameras capture glimpses, yet the deep sea absorbs all without acknowledgement. Its processes continue exactly as they would without intervention. A bioluminescent fish glides past, unaware of being observed. Sediment settles over centuries-old debris. Thermal vents pulse with heat. Each action unfolds naturally, timelessly, and without human influence. Late at night, reflecting on this, one might feel a mixture of awe and gentle unease. The ocean is not threatening. It is not cruel. It is simply unconcerned. Its indifference is absolute, yet it is also consistent and reliable. Human expectations of consequence, observation, or relevance are irrelevant. The deep sea operates entirely on its own terms, and our presence, however brief, is neither noted nor required. And perhaps that is the most profound lesson. To understand the ocean is to recognize patience, endurance, and impartiality. It is to experience the quiet, persistent rhythms of a world that does not care whether we exist or not. The realization that humans are not important here is unsettling, yes, but it is also gentle. It is the calm of indifference, the lullaby of persistence, and the subtle humor of existence continuing regardless of human significance. The ocean does not judge. The ocean does not wait. The ocean does not notice. It simply is. Epilogue: The Ocean as a Timeless Archive. As we draw our journey beneath the waves to a gentle close, it is worth pausing to reflect on what the ocean truly represents, not a place of fear nor a space of conquest, but a patient archive, vast, indifferent, and enduring. The deep sea has witnessed millennia pass without hurry, recording each movement, each pulse, each subtle shift in its folds, yet without comment, judgment, or expectation. It archives history, life, and matter with impartial precision, indifferent to whether anyone notices or comprehends its processes. Every ridge, trench, and sediment layer is a story, yet these stories do not rely on human witnesses. They unfold naturally, shaped by time, pressure, and environmental law. Shipwrecks rest in eternal patience, creatures adapt in darkness without recognition, and chemical cycles, unseen yet constant, sustain life far from human eyes. The ocean is a keeper of secrets, yet it does not guard them jealously. It simply preserves, calmly, quietly, persistently. In this sense, it is perhaps the most honest historian imaginable, unconcerned with fame, dramatics, or interpretation, cataloging only reality itself. Human curiosity has brought us glimpses into this world, flashes of bioluminescent light, the subtle hum of distant vibrations, glimpses of forms and creatures that would be impossible above water, and yet for all our instruments and technology, we remain guests, temporary and limited. The ocean's scale, patience, and indifference remind us of our own boundaries, not out of cruelty, but by simple law. We are creatures of the surface, designed for gravity, sunlight, and air. The ocean does not need to act. It only exists, and in doing so, it teaches. There is a subtle humor in our fascination. We prepare, we plan, we descend in submersibles, build habitats, record, measure, categorize. We imagine mastery and adventure. Meanwhile, the deep sea continues without notice, unconcerned, untouched, quietly correcting our assumptions by its mere persistence. Every attempt to control or interpret is met not with resistance but with calm continuation. The ocean is not malicious, it simply is, and that is enough to humble anyone who listens long enough. Perhaps the most profound lesson lies not in the things we see, but in the things we do not. The unexplored ridges, the unnamed trenches, the unobserved ecosystems, they all exist fully, beautifully, and silently. Life continues without validation. History unfolds without chroniclers, and processes endure without attention. Human absence is irrelevant. Human significance is optional. In this space, one learns patience, humility, and the gentle art of noticing without expectation. As we finish this journey, it is comforting to remember that the ocean's indifference is not emptiness. It is fullness, quiet but complete. It is a world that neither fears nor desires, a vast stage upon which life, matter, and time play their uninterrupted parts. There is no drama required. There is no narrative imposed. There is only being, unhurried, consistent, and infinitely patient. So let us leave the ocean where it always was, calm and eternal. Let us carry with us the memory of patience, the subtle rhythms of deep currents, and the quiet beauty of existence independent of human attention. Let us remember that curiosity is valuable, exploration is noble, but humility is perhaps the truest companion when wandering even mentally beneath the waves. Thank you for taking this long, slow dive with me. For a while we shared the ocean's patience, its indifference, and its quiet persistence. Perhaps now, as you settle back into the comfort of the surface world, you carry a fragment of its calm. Let it remind you, life, in all its forms, endures, moves, and exists, regardless of whether we are watching, and that in itself is quietly wonderful. Good night.